Hi guys, it is Mandy from Mandyleeplays, and in this video I'm going to share with you 7 RPGs or JRPGs that have a very impactful and great story. Now, if you know me, you would know that I love a good story in my RPGs slash JRPGs, and I kind of prioritize it more than the gameplay. So yeah, story is a big deal for me. So I thought it would be a great time to break down my favorite stories in JRPGs, without spoilers of course. Mainly because I encourage people who come into this video to go and play those games, so I don't want to spoil them. And if you're new here, then hello, welcome to the channel. Please hit that subscribe button and or like if you end up liking the video. So let's get into the list. First off is Final Fantasy VI. Now I played it for the first time like a year ago, I believe, and the story was very impactful, and I can see why a lot of people love Final Fantasy VI when it comes to the story and the gameplay. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of retro games, but some games I really just want to play for the experience, and that's where Final Fantasy VI comes in. Final Fantasy VI is often hailed as one of the greatest JRPGs of all time, and its story being one of the major reasons why. Now, back then, I think this game came out in 1994. Putting a good story into a game was even less of a priority back then, so the fact that they did put a very robust story in an older Final Fantasy game is amazing. Now, Final Fantasy VI is set in a world torn by war and ruin. The game delivers an epic tale of rebellion against an oppressive empire. Now, while the game's protagonist is technically Terra, I feel like any of the characters in the cast could be the protagonist, mainly because you take control of a single character, and there are moments where the characters are split apart, so you're forced to use your other characters as a protagonist. I really like that because it made me really love the cast of characters even more, so I thought that feature was great. And each character does go through their individual character arc, which I really enjoyed. My favorite character has to be Celeste, not only because she's freaking broken in the game, but because I do like her story arc and where she starts and where she ends in the story. I feel like the writers took a lot of time and effort with these characters, and that's what really makes them iconic in the Final Fantasy universe. The first act of the game has a very tightly written narrative that keeps you on your toes, that involves Terra and her friends battling against the Empire. But where the game truly shines is the halfway mark, when the climax comes to its apex, which sets the stage for the second act. I did create a review for Final Fantasy VI if you want to check that out. I go more in depth into the themes, the story, and the characters, and the villains. So with the characters, themes, and world, it really made Final Fantasy VI one of the most meaningful and impactful games in the Final Fantasy series. And trust me fam, I played most of the Final Fantasy games. Alright, time for some emotional damage with our next pick, and that is Nier Replicant. Now, I did have a hard time choosing which one I wanted to cover, Nier Replicant or Nier Automata, but then I ended up with Nier Replicant, mostly because I haven't really talked about it that much, and it's kind of more depressing than Nier Automata. Like, if you know, you know. Now, Nier Replicant is actually a remake from the original Nier Replicant, and they changed a lot of the gameplay. Nier is a narrative that takes players on a very emotional journey, using its dark dystopian world to explore the profound themes that we see in this game, including existentialism, identity, and sacrifice, which are just the highlights of some of its themes. But all those dark themes are not just there to be dark, they do mean something in the overall narrative, mainly because the game is set in a post-apocalyptic future where humanity teeters on the brink of extinction. Fun, right? Fun stuff. You assume the role of Nier, a titular protagonist fighting to save his ailing sister. Now, while the story in its surface, especially in the beginning, seems a little bit too cliche, yeah, it's not gonna stay that way for long. Nier quickly subverts your expectations, and it often challenges the traditional notions of good and evil. That's another reason why I love the story of this game. I really don't like stories that have a good and evil and it's very black or white. Nier is very gray area. Everything is gray area, where you don't know who's the villain, who's the hero, is there really heroes in this world, and are there really villains in this world? There's a lot of things that put into perspective what you're doing and is it worth it, and I just love that. That's why I really enjoy Nier Automata and Nier Replicant, because it really does away with the tropes that we all know and love from other JRPGs and spins it on its head to make you really think about the themes of the story and what it's trying to say. And the characters in Nier are unforgettable. Each of them brings their own struggles and depth into the story. Even your your protagonist Nier. While he does start off as your titular hero character, he soon changes as you go deeper into the story. And then there's the mysterious Kaine, who has an internal conflict within herself. Yes, she is the lady running around in lingerie. Yeah, that's her. And then there's my actual favorite character, Emil, and his tragic innocence. And he adds a lot of much needed happiness in the story. Now, this is a Yoko Taro game, so there are multiple endings. After completing the game once, subsequent playthroughs reveal different perspectives from different people, including the perspective of your enemies. I'm not gonna lie, after I played Nier Replicant, I just sat down and said, well, damn. That game was in my mind 24/7 for months, just because the story was that good, that impactful, and it really made me think about things, which is great. That's what a story should be, and that's why it's on this list. Now, the next game is a game you guys probably have seen or played yourself because it's an older game. That is Chrono Trigger. Now, I recently beat Chrono Trigger like a few months ago, and I still need to do my review of it. I know, I'm sorry. So I'm not going to say every point because I'm going to go through it in the review, but I do want to mention this in this video because the story was fantastic. Alright, but to start, few games have managed to capture the magic of time travel as masterfully as Chrono Trigger. Chrono Trigger has a very simplistic design when it comes to time traveling, so instead of having butterfly effects or paradoxes, it just goes for a more, hey, if you go in the future and if you change something, it'll probably change something in the past, and vice versa. Which honestly, that was a good move because making this whole time travel stuff complicated would have really hindered the story. The game's story follows a group of heroes who must traverse different eras to prevent an apocalypse, creating a narrative that feels both grand in scale and personal in its character interactions. One of the most unique aspects of Chrono Trigger storytelling is its seamless integration of time as a narrative device, creating a dynamic and ever-evolving story. The cast of characters is very diverse and unforgettable, with each member bringing their own unique perspective to the time-spanning adventure. My favorite character is Mari. I loved her from the start, and I used her as my main healer. And plus, she has the cutest sprites ever. And the game also offers a balance between personal stakes and world-ending consequences. Now, Chrono Trigger is very popular in the JRPG community. While it wasn't the groundbreaking JRPG like some people say it was, I could see the hype behind it. And plus the different characters and the time traveling, it does add a certain immersion to the game. And might I add, it is a timeless classic.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
So if you haven't experienced Chrono Trigger and you want a good story, then go check that one out. Next we have Fire Emblem Three Houses. Let's go. Fire Emblem Three Houses is a game that thrives on its narrative complexity and its emotional depth. Set in the world of Folan, you control your protagonist, who is also a mercenary turned professor at the Garrick Mach Monastery. And there are 3 different houses in this Garrick Mach Monastery. Well, technically 4. Each house has their own politics, cultures, and ideologies. Also, the 3 leaders of this house happen to be the 3 leaders of the region. So Dimitri is a prince, Elgard is an empress, and Claude is like a president in a way. Now, depending on which house you choose, it does offer a fresh perspective to the unique story, with a lot of politics and gray area, which I love. And you get a host of a lot of different characters with their own unique stories. Like a lot. There's a lot of characters in this game. So it's really hard to go into this game and not coming out with your favorite character because you're bound to like one of them. Now, the branching storyline and character development makes Fire Emblem Three Houses one of the most emotionally engaging JRPGs or tactical JRPGs. Every choice feels significant and you really want to think it out before you do it, creating a story that feels both intimate and grand. And towards the end, you really grow and care about these characters, especially in subsequent playthroughs. If you like a bunch of characters, you'll probably love Three Houses. The result is a story that resonates long after the final battle. But don't be sad because you have 4 different other playthroughs to go to. This game is very long, so Fire Emblem Three Houses is literally 3 games in one package. Plus the secret route, you're looking for a very long game. And the story itself on all of the 3 different routes really resonated with me. It made me love the routes in their own unique way. Next game is Crisis Core. Wow, why do we have such depressing games? I guess for me, a good story is kind of sad, weird in a way. I don't know why. I'm emo, leave me alone. Now, I put Crisis Core instead of Final Fantasy VII because I feel like Crisis Core actually made me tear up a bit. It was just so, whew, the story was really, really good. Although Crisis Core is a prequel to Final Fantasy VII, I feel like it stands on its own as a compelling story. This game follows Zack Fair, a soldier first class operative, as he rises through the ranks of Shinra. Alright, so Zack in the original Final Fantasy VII game was just the guy in the truck. He didn't really have a personality, but in Crisis Core they fleshed out his personality where it kind of puts into perspective what you saw in the original Final Fantasy VII, and it's just like, wow. Now Zack as a protagonist is one of my favorite protagonists. He has Labrador Retriever energy that exudes a lot throughout the game. However, he becomes entangled into this larger narrative that he didn't even ask for. But knowing Zack, he always wants to do what is right, so even though he didn't ask for this stuff, he wants to help out. Zack's journey is one of idealism turned to disillusionment, making his ultimate fate all the more tragic and memorable. At the core of Crisis Core is the relationship between Zack and his mentor Angel, as well as his growing friendship with Cloud and romantic connection with Aerith. The game also delves into the darker side of Shinra's operation while maintaining a narrative focus on Zack's personal journey. A lot of people don't like to say Crisis Core is needed, but I feel like it's needed because it does set the stage for a lot of things in Final Fantasy VII, especially in the remake titles, so I highly recommend you play it if you haven't played it. It is really good, but really sad. Next game on the list is Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Now, I was going to put Xenoblade Chronicles the first one, but I talk about that one way too much, and Xenoblade Chronicles 3 still has a very good story that I loved. So Xenoblade Chronicles 3 masterfully weaves together a complex, emotionally charged narrative that explores themes of identity, freedom, and the cyclical nature of war. Set in the world of Ionius, where two nations are locked in eternal conflict, the game follows 6 soldiers from opposite sides who band together to help this world. The central conflict in Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is driven by the discovery of a mysterious system that focuses soldiers to live only 10 years before they are reborn, all for the sake of continuing a pointless war that just goes on forever and ever. Do you know the definition of insanity? I think you do. So that's why the world is so bleak at first, because they're just fighting for no reason. And that mindset has a lot of people detached from the world, where they're just like, I'm just doing what I have to. I only have, 10 years to live, and my whole lifespan is just fighting. As a protagonist, you uncover the truth behind the system, and the game challenges players to reflect on the meaning of life, memory, and legacy. Now, I do love the characters in this game. Noah, he's pretty cool. Mio is awesome, and the other characters are very, very cool. There wasn't a character in this game that I really disliked if there weren't a villain. The shifting alliances and growing comrades between the once opposing characters makes the story really personal, and you really grow to love these guys. And the bond between Noah, Mio, and the rest of the group feels very genuine. This game honestly is an experience. From the story to the music, the gameplay, the characters, you're getting all of that in this game. So if you haven't checked out Xenoblade Chronicles 3, I highly recommend you do. Now in the timeline, you don't really need to play the other two, though I highly recommend you play the other two first, but you could just play the third first and then go to the other two. And our next one, which is our last one, is Persona 4. Y'all thought I was gonna say Persona 5, but no, it's Persona 4. Well, technically Persona 4 Golden. Now Persona 4 is my personal favorite Persona game for a lot of reasons, but the story is chief among them. Persona 4 Golden is a masterclass in blending mystery, friendship, and self-discovery into a deeply engaging narrative. Set in the quiet rural town of Inuba, the story begins with the protagonist who arrives for a year-long stay with his uncle and cousin. What starts as a peaceful new life quickly turns into a dark and thrilling investigation. The game's central mystery revolves around a midnight channel that appears only on rainy nights, pulling victims into this alternate dimension, which honestly sounds like something out of Black Mirror. Now, Persona 4 Golden has a lot of themes, but the central theme is self-discovery. Now, this one really hits me personally because I have a lot of confidence issues, and I generally don't really look highly on myself. I am my worst critic, and games like this really made me feel seen, but I still get the feeling like I'm not the only one out here trying to find themselves. And in case you guys don't know, a persona is the face that we put in certain situations, but in this game, your persona is something you could use as a vehicle to get further into your self-discovery. But I also love how Persona 4 does a real good balancing act on having a fun slice of life adventure with your friends and also tackling the darker aspects about the murders and investigation. And out of all the Persona games, the Persona 4 cast is one of my favorites. They're just a wacky bunch of friends who just banded together not just because they want to save the area and stuff, but because they feel like genuine friendships. And I love the blend of supernatural things and realistic things coming together. And plus, there's a lot of twists and turns that you might not see coming. And I highly recommend you guys play it. It's on PC, Switch, PlayStation, all those places. No longer do you have to search for a Vita to play the game. It is now on all the consoles. So that is it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, hit that like button, and if you enjoy the rest of my content, then please consider subscribing. Tell me what game stories really impacted you in the comments down below. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of the day, and as always, play a good game. Peace.